Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a special edition, Boston Praise Radio. We listened to the debate, myself and Pastor Wall, and we are here to give you our commentary on what it is we both saw. And heard, absolutely. It was difficult to kind of parse some of the things that were going on. We have some basic points that we agree on, and there are some things that we disagree on. So, thank you for joining us. We're on Boston Praise Radio, WBPG 102.9 on your FM dial, but right now we're only on the internet because it's after time. I am Pastor Dan Walker. I am so privileged to pastor the New Bethel Baptist Church in Framingham, Mass., where God is doing amazing things. So, but tonight I'm Analyst Dan. We've set aside our different sections because I think it's good that two people who have different opinions on something get a chance to share it with you. You're welcome to call in at 617-282-0685. Yes, I know. My brain, I was having should I say I was having a Biden moment, or would that be somewhat loading the thing?
That was good.
Yeah, thank you. So I have some stats here that I would like to share. I don't know if you did this or not, but I did this. In terms of attacks, I have Trump attacked 4 times blatantly. And what I'm calling an attack is where you don't answer the particular question, but you lead with an attack on your opponent. So that's an attack as far as I'm concerned.
Right, and it's a style. It's a style.
All right. Well, it may be his
in debates.
Right. It's a style. It's definitely a style that's used in debates. Yeah. You know, I found it curious that. So wait a minute. Let me get my stats out, and then we can keep going because I have them written down here. Trump misspoke one time from what I heard. He misspoke one time. He went to say something and it wasn't quite clear. It wasn't in clarity. Oh my goodness, we haven't even done clarity yet. But he misspoke one time. All right, Joe Biden. You want the misspeaks first or you want the attacks first? Joe Biden attacked President Trump, by my count, 10 times. This is where he comes out and he, without answering the question, he says, this guy's a liar, this guy is this guy is this. He attacks Trump 10 times. He misspeaks. This takes me a minute to count up here. 5, 10, 15, 20, 23 times I have Biden misspeaking. I'm willing.
What is misspeaking?
I'm going to define what that means. That's where he starts to say something, but doesn't quite get it out, and then he steps back and says, "Oh, excuse me," and then he tries to restate the point. He did that 23 times, and also a misspeak is when your comment has absolutely nothing to do. It's not an attack. It's not an answer. It's just a random set of words that people are listening to him and go, what are you talking about?
You see, I didn't count the number of times that the former president was asked a question and he didn't answer the question. He continued to engage and respond to what President Joe Biden had to say.
Right.
I didn't have enough paper.
No, whether you had enough paper or not, you didn't do it.
And too much.
Yeah, and I didn't do it either because I personally don't think that either of these two answered the straight question the first time.
Well, I'm going to say it this way. One, Donald Trump really didn't answer many of the questions that were posed to him. Joe Biden couldn't.
Well, that's the other. I'm about to say. See, I'll grant you that Joe Biden made an attempt at answering the questions, but he wasn't able to. Yeah. Where Donald Trump outright did not answer them until he felt like answering them, because in some questions he did answer, but he didn't answer them. He did not answer them when they wanted him to. Would you grant me that?
When you're in a debate and you have the capacity to answer a question, and direct questions are coming at you, and so some of those questions were coming at him in his area of weakness, and you're not responding to it at all. It's just a style, a very effective style of not getting caught and going in another direction. And the direction that he chose to go most of the time was responding to something else that President Joe Biden had to say.
So
I'm not knocking him. I'm just saying.
I understand.
It's his style.
It's his style. So, should I do Trump's points first or Biden's points first?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Okay.
It doesn't matter because, as I said to you, because I may not be able to say it again because of cognitive.
Right. Dissidence. See, you're having your own Joe Biden moment. That's going to stick.
Yes, I am. So go ahead.
Yes. Okay. So.
You did that to me.
Yes. Trump's points. The borders are wide open. No respect for the country worldwide. No regulations on our trade partners. Now, no respect in terms of military. And then a different no respect in terms of regulations on those people doing trade with us. And the fact that COVID came in and destroyed his progress that he had made on the drug war on the drugs. I'm having that moment now on the drug world by closing the borders and making it difficult for people to come into this country. He effectively did close a very good significant part of drugs being able to come in illegally, because when you close the borders, less drugs can come in. So that did happen, and his other main point was that Biden was incompetent.
Okay.
Okay, so now Biden's points.
Go ahead.
All right, Biden's points. Trump is a lousy person. He's a liar. He's a degenerate, and he was the worst president that we'd had overall, and everybody agreed that he was the worst president, even though we know that that's not the case. James Buchanan was considered the worst president by people who know better.
You know, don't go after Joe Biden by using my
I'm not going after, but hey,
my research.
Well, hey,
keep it to myself.
Yeah.
One of the things that President, we got to go to this call. One of the things that they.
Well, hang on. Let me finish Biden's points. America is great and is in the largest section of growth it's ever had. And if you bring him back, he will complete the process that he has started, which is
destroying our country?
To destroy everything Trump did to destroy our country.
Oh, okay.
So those were Biden's points.
Okay.
All right.
Let's take this caller. Let's see what they have to say. Caller, go ahead. You're live on the air.
Good evening, Reverend Wall and Pastor Walker. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I feel like I ought to get my I need to get my thunderwear on. All right, come on.
Well, this is Bill Wright.
We know who it is.
Pastor Wall ordered me to call in tonight.
Okay.
Regarding Joe Biden, I thought that former President Obama was going to lead him to the podium.
Yes.
I know. Wasn't it sad?
Oh.
Just watching that?
Yeah.
It appears to me like elder abuse.
In what respect? Making him go through this?
Making him go through this, and that the people who work at the White House now and those in major positions in the federal agencies, they want another 3 or 4 years in those positions so they can transition into their private sector jobs after this. So they're forcing this gentleman to go through this campaign to run again. Joe Biden always wanted to be president. He got to be president. He doesn't need to be president twice. And I remind people all the time that John Fitzgerald Kennedy was 43 years old when he won the presidency.
Right. And I'm amazed that you, I thank you for bringing up John Fitzgerald Kennedy, because in terms of if you want to put his morality against Donald Trump, former President Trump's morality, I think that Trump's going to win, quite frankly. And the reason I say that because President Trump was not a politician. He was a regular citizen, and everything he did in the quote unquote private sector. What he did or didn't do, whereas we know JFK, what he did while he was in the Oval Office.
Was that your point? Was that the point you were trying to make?
Well, I was making the age differential point that basically Biden's almost twice as old as Kennedy was. But on your point about the morality, obviously back in Kennedy's days, it was almost sort of an agreement with the press. They didn't reveal the Marilyn Monroe issues and other things that were happening with the president at that time compared with how things are today. I believe that Donald Trump ran for president sort of to get back at Obama and others. And Donald Trump should never have become president. When does a person run for office their first time for the top position in the land? And when Donald Trump
and when?
Right, and when. And Donald Trump thought that he could change birthright citizenship just by signing an executive order, and none of the clowns around him, the attorneys and others, told him you need to have a constitutional convention in two-thirds of the states, and then in the convention, maybe three-fourths to change anything in the Constitution. But these people are so concerned about their jobs that they don't speak honestly to people like Trump.
Okay, so here to your point, you can thank Her Royal Highness Hillary Clinton for Donald Trump winning. I personally believe that had she stayed out of the process and not torpedoed, oh my goodness.
I know you're talking about
if she hadn't torpedoed Bernie Sanders, okay, he could have beaten Trump, and I believe he would have beaten Trump because he's the devil we know, and America always goes for the devil they know. But when she took out Sanders, she signed Trump's position as president.
She didn't really know how unpopular she really was.
Well, whether Hillary
Clinton was a terrible candidate, and she's sort of like John Kerry, where people would say even his friends don't like him.
Yeah. Well, Hillary Clinton, and again, this is one of those things where we don't want to speak ill of the dead, but Hillary Clinton was just so unlikable as a person and phony as a $3 bill. I remember when she gave that speech with the black women, and she goes into this fake Southern drawl. I don't feel no way. I was like, really? You don't have to do that. It's insulting.
And she had her hot sauce in her purse. But who is the dead we're not speaking about?
What do you mean when I say I don't want to speak ill of the dead? Yes. Oh, I consider her to be dead in terms of political.
Politically dead.
Yeah, politically dead.
She's not actually politically dead. She is now working for the Columbia School of International and Public Affairs.
Okay.
Well, and as you may know, the Columbia now has a female president for the first time, Manoush Shafiq, who is Egyptian, British citizenship, and American citizenship. UMass Amherst, London School of Economics in Oxford, and she headed London School of Economics before coming to Columbia. But back to the presidential campaign or debate tonight. This had to be scary, frightening to every American.
Oh, it should be.
And even more so to our allies overseas.
No, our allies overseas, well, our allies, yes, they should be quaking in their boots right now. If this guy gets back in, they're dead.
Did you notice? Yes. Did you notice former President Donald Trump, whenever, most of the time, not all the times, but most of the times when he was asked a question, he didn't respond to the question. He just was responding to President Biden. But as I said to Pastor Dan, it's amazing how he kept going back to the border. Almost many of his questions, he referenced the border, which was one of his main talking points.
Oh, absolutely! I have it down here on my list of Trump's talking points. The first, his biggest point is the border.
Right. So,
but there's a reason for that.
Well, but hold on, Bill. What are the Democrats going to do?
Okay, I have a suggestion. In 1968, the last time the Democrats went to Chicago for a convention, that is when Lyndon Johnson dropped out of the race and surprised everyone. So we were left with Hubert Humphrey running against Richard Nixon, Humphrey was a weak candidate. Nixon won. However, conventions were not always coronations as they become in recent times. There's a film called The Best Man with Henry Fonda and Cliff Robertson that shows you what an old-fashioned convention used to be like. It's very much like, say, the AME Church having an election for bishop. And in those conventions, there are rounds of balloting. During those rounds, they're looking for someone to get to 50% plus to get the nomination. In between rounds, there's horse trading going on. So a delegate from Vermont might say to a delegate from, Kansas, if you support our candidate, we'll give you Secretary of State, and so on, right?
Absolutely.
That's what conventions used to be. Now they're coronations. You know who's going to win before the thing even happens. But we may get back to that again because Johnson was dealing with the Vietnam War protests by students, and Biden is dealing with the protests by students about the Israel-Hamas war. Mm-hmm. And Chicago, we know there are so many other players there. Barack Obama, Michelle Obama still have a house there. Governor Pritzker might be somebody they might want to put up. Every senator believes they should be president, of course, right?
Right. So let me suggest this. Let me give you a for instance. Based on this situation, based on what the whole country saw, because do we want to declare a winner? Or, should we declare a winner, or wait till the end of this, or what?
I think the winner has to be Donald Trump as it relates to clarity in his ability to communicate. Unfortunately, as I said to Pastor Walker, that we need a fact checker primarily on most of the things that Donald Trump had to say.
And I would say that, and I said, we need a fact checker on both of them, because I think they both were playing quote unquote fast and loose. However, Trump says, 150 people said I didn't say it, and one person said I said it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it becomes the other part of this. It becomes who are you going to believe? And then some would say, who are you going to believe? The truth or your lying eyes? Me or your lying eyes? In this situation, Donald Trump went back to the things that America are primarily concerned with. And the fact that he is raising his status among minority voters, black and Latino voters, is unprecedented. Who's ever heard? Go ahead.
It is very troubling, of course, the number of times that Joe Biden sort of got lost in his own conversation.
Absolutely.
And at one point, Trump said, I don't even know what he just said just now.
Right.
And I don't think he does either.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, and I didn't want him to say that, by the way.
Well, he could have been worse. Donald Trump could have been a whole lot worse.
Donald Trump,
give him credit for not tearing the man up.
He did the right thing, because I was convinced when the judge released some of the gag order, I was convinced that was done strategically because Trump doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut. And he was going to go hog wild on all of this stuff because he now can. But if you notice, he only brought it up one time that I counted in terms of unfair. It's all going to be overturned on appeal. And it was Biden who started the personal attacks. Donald Trump did not start the personal attacks. I have it written down right here. When Biden...
Right, that was Clinton Joe Biden when it came to the attacks, not the Delaware Joe Biden. And you may be aware, of course, that the appeals judges in New York City that Trump is appealing to are 5 black women.
Well, that'll be interesting.
Right, but all of his prosecutors, or most of them, have been black people: Alvin Bragg and Fannie Willis, and of course Letitia James, the Attorney General.
They've been prosecutors who are clearly and are on record as being, we're going to get this guy. We're going to get this guy.
Well, yeah, they're for the politicians,
right?
And the other thing is that sort of I lived and worked in New York City politics and Albany politics, with Reverend Carl McCall and others, and Dave Dinkins and those people. So one of my questions is, which of those two men, if you were in Manhattan that night, let's say you're in Harlem, which of those two men would you want to walk down the dark alley with, Trump or Biden?
Clearly Trump.
Exactly.
Clearly Trump.
So what is our country? What are we going to do? because neither of these candidates. I'm ready to do a write-in for the primary. I'm ready to go past the Dan Walker.
So, well, thank you. I appreciate it. And as soon as I'm elected president, you become my vice president.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. And I'll elect this gentleman here as Secretary of the State. Exactly. Oh, come on. I got this. And and I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to find a person who's been running a corner deli in a neighborhood for 50 years, and I'm going to appoint him the head of our finance.
I like that. But we all agree that Donald Trump is going to be declared the winner.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He'd have to be declared the winner if for no other reason you could understand what he was saying the entire debate.
So what does this do to the Democratic Party? Are they in a free fall right now, Bill?
Well, you know that the head of the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, is Jamie Harrison, who ran against Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. And because he raised $100 million in that race, which he did not win, he was chosen to head the DNC. The DNC and the Republican National Committee have both failed in presenting vital, reasonable candidates for president, and that's why you don't see who's number two, who's number three. Kamala Harris is the vice president you get, so that's kind of a life insurance policy. You know, Dan Quayle was one of those, Spiro Agnew was one of those, where people think, well, you know, we got to keep the president healthy because we don't want to have vice president there.
It was Spiro Agnew. Thank you. You triggered something. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll get back to that in a minute.
Yes, and on the Republican side, during the campaigns, DeSantis, Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, their flaws were exposed. And some people forget that Kamala Harris's campaign for president in 2020 crashed and burned.
Oh, yeah.
Part of the problem is freshman senators do not become president of the United States. They rarely run for president. JFK and Obama are the two exceptions.
Correct. And Obama, who nobody had ever heard of him, this was a person who voted present during his Senate run more than anybody else had ever voted. If you look at his record, he voted present, which means I'm not voting yes or no on this. I'm here, and that's what he voted. And to me,
and you know why he did that?
I'm listening.
Because that allowed him to run for president with not much of a record to be attacked.
Exactly.
Strategy again.
Okay, so he was proud, but keep something in mind now. Once again, we cannot forget you got Obama because of Hillary. I'm sorry, you got Trump because of Hillary. And
yes,
when Obama he came out of nowhere. Hillary was all set to go, and all of a sudden they pulled a fast one on her, and they brought Obama in, and he won. So if I'm a Democrat, I'm looking at who I can run. Let's face it, nobody wants Kamala.
Right. Remember that when Bill Clinton ran in '92, the only person who could have stopped him was Hillary Clinton simply by filing for divorce.
Correct.
Since she did not do that, then Bill Clinton owed her. That's why he and she were so upset when Ted Kennedy and Caroline Kennedy endorsed Barack Obama instead of Hillary Clinton.
I completely agree with you. But again, people don't understand. If you study the background, all these people have like a persona on TV, but they have a background. And it's easy to find out Hillary Clinton is not nice.
So do we say now that if the Democrats continue with President Joe Biden, the Democrats are going to lose the race? Is that fair to say?
I would think that's fair to say. Based on tonight's performance. Yeah. But I think tonight's performance was the last hurrah. Here's what I think. This would be interesting. At the convention, they nominate Joe Biden. They coronate, whatever you want to call it, Joe Biden to be the next president. He steps up magnanimously and says, guys, thank you very much, but in all due conscience, I am not fit to do another 4 years medically. I just can't do it. I'm going to not run. I'm not stepping down. We're not putting Kamala in office. Don't get me wrong. She's not ever going to see this office. I'm not going to run again, but he's going to throw open the convention to a wide open Donnybrook.
Bill, isn't that exactly what you were saying?
Yes, to make the convention an old-fashioned convention with the battle for the nomination. I could see that timing, but also I could see them announcing any day that Joe Biden's cancer has returned, and so he's bowing out. So it doesn't look as if he's afraid to face Trump.
Yeah.
But I think it's a necessity, both parties, to have real conventions in which they battle to create the candidates who have a good chance, but who are more reflective of what's needed now. Imagine being like a 20-year-old in college, and you're in a cyber world, an internet world, and the President of the United States possibly was 77 or 81.
But see, when it comes to Trump, that's not a problem. What people don't understand about Donald Trump is he's not a Luddite, okay? He knows technology. He understands his cell phone, his computers, and all that stuff. This is a person who lives and breathes information. One of the things...
Yes,
go ahead.
And his role model is John Gotti, who, of course, was the flamboyant mafia figure in New York City.
And John Gotti, if you brought him up, then you know the truth. John Gotti was not respected within the mob because he violated the first rule, which is to be invisible.
Exactly. And Dan, while I was in New York, I had an occasion to speak with a gentleman named Anthony Scotto.
Mm-hmm.
In my job working for Senator McCall. Anthony Scotto was under indictment as the leader of that organization in Brooklyn. So you're right. They don't want to be known. They don't need to be known. And Donald Trump, because he's not a good student, he forgets that John Gotti died in prison.
Right. But here's the problem. John Gotti died in prison because just like, what's his name? Oh, my goodness. Hoffa. Just like Hoffa. When Hoffa came out, he tried to regain his status of where he was, and the world had moved beyond him. So he had to die.
Right.
So John Gotti was either going to die in prison or he was going to come out and be killed because he was never going to get back to where he was. You know the routines, you know the laws, and they know it. But everybody, they all think that they can not.
Dan, excuse me, I'm going to say that I went to Columbia College in 1969, and future Attorney General Eric Holder was in my class,
mm-hmm.
who, of course, was one of the people who vetted Joe Biden, along with Caroline Kennedy, to be the VP for Obama. But those New York guys that I met at Columbia, especially the ones from Queens and Brooklyn, they don't have a family Bible in the den or, open, with all the family weddings and births and so on. They have a copy of Mario Puzo's The Godfather.
Right. And
Mario Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo, all these folks, Chris Cuomo, they use the language like Donald Trump Jr. talks about. We had to go to the mattresses.
Oh yeah.
Donald Trump Sr. calls Michael Cohen a rat.
Yeah.
They live and speak and believe that way. And if you don't understand that, you don't get where these guys are coming from.
Absolutely.
They're living a gangster life.
And see, here's the thing, but people don't know. When they tried to get Mario Puzo to say who the Godfather, who he modeled his character, the Godfather, Don Corleone, after, he said he didn't say who because he actually modeled it after 4 different Godfathers. Each characterization. When he's the statesman, he's one of them. When he's the blatant killer, he's another one. So it was difficult for people to figure out who he was modeling because basically he was modeling the concept of the life.
That's interesting. So Bill,
like The Sopranos.
Pardon?
So Bill,
like The Sopranos TV series.
Absolutely.
So Bill, is your choice or your speculation that Eric Holder could be the Democratic nominee? Is that where you're going with this?
I have been hoping that Eric Holder would run. Last summer, he spoke at the JFK Library. I hadn't seen him in some time. He looked fit and he was sharp. And of course, having been the Attorney General, he and I are both 12 years older than Barack Obama. We arrived on campus after the political explosions on campus, hostage taking and things at Columbia. And so in many ways, Eric Holder was an advisor and mentor for Barack Obama, who arrived in 1981 after 2 years at Occidental. Are either of you aware that Barack Obama's grandfather, his mother's father, Arthur Dunham, was related to 6 American presidents?
No, I did not know that.
Therefore, Barack Obama is related to 6 American presidents.
I did not know that.
And just as Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh said in his testimony that he had no special help getting into Yale, Kavanaugh's grandfather went to Yale.
Yeah.
I guess Gramps never talked about that. But another problem in this country is we don't have a royal monarchy. We have a Mayflower-based monarchy. A student in England found that all U.S. presidents trace back to King James, with the exception of Van Buren, who, of course, was Dutch. And you remember that New York was no Amsterdam before it became New York.
Bill is no joke when we have these conversations.
No, I love it.
So, Bill, is the country ready for an Eric Holder and a Kamala Harris? Is it ready for 2 black folk running for the office of the president?
Well, why do you think that Kamala Harris would be his vice president?
Oh, if he wants to tank his chances, he'll pick her. Kamala Harris is on record as being a virulent person against Israel. She does not like Israel. And I have to go to the Word of God in this situation, which he's clearly stated, if you don't support Israel, you got a problem with me.
So what happens to her if he becomes the nominee or anybody else becomes the nominee?
Here's your hat. What's your hurry? Thanks.
Vice president.
Yes. Thanks for coming.
Remember, her husband Emhoff is Jewish.
Okay, I understand that.
So that's the closest the Jews have come to having someone inside the Oval Office.
But her statements publicly, the things
I get you.
The things that she has said out of her mouth would scare the average person, especially the Jewish person, based on what she's saying.
All they have to do is look up her relationship with Willie Brown, the former Speaker of the Assembly in Sacramento, who was the mayor of San Francisco, who was her patron, who was also her lover when he was still married.
Yeah.
The other thing is, when she went to Poland, when the Ukraine war with Russia began, the international media, a reporter asked her, how many refugees from Ukraine will the United States take in? Her response was to give that cackling laugh, and then she looked at the Polish president at the other podium, and she said to him, a friend in need is a friend indeed. The press there looked at her like she was insane. People were being already killed by Russian soldiers, and she had that response when all she had to say was, we'll take in as many as we can.
Right.
She's not particularly bright.
She's not particularly bright. She's not particularly statesman. And as far as I'm concerned, it's an insult to have her in that office in the first place when there are so many more qualified black women that could have been chosen who could have actually fulfilled the job as vice president.
What was the attraction for Joe Biden to pick her?
68 million residents of California and the Hollywood and Jewish lobby money, the Spielbergs and Barbara Streisands and so on. Many of the politicians in Washington depend upon the dollars from the Jewish lobby and these other people to stay in office. And for most of these politicians, it's the best job they ever had. And for a lot of the men who are in Washington in particular, when they leave Kansas or Alabama or where their home is, typically the wife and the kids stay in the home state, keeping things going for them as a politician. And they go to Washington and they become a bachelor all over again.
Yeah. Well, we don't
That's why
we don't want to mention.
Booker,
go ahead.
So Cory Booker, who's wanted to aspire to higher office, vice president or president or whatever, he has been told, you have to be married, Cory Booker, to move to the next level. There won't be any bachelor vice president or bachelor president, if only because the members of Congress, the men there who cheat on their wives, they have to go to extraordinary lengths to get away with that. And if you had a bachelor vice president, he could go to dinner with a different woman every night and it wouldn't be a big deal.
Right. And trying to keep this thing above ground, if you study Kamala Harris's background, it is clear how she got where she got. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes.
It's
And she went to school in Montreal, not in the States, and all that.
Right.
When she made her first speech as vice president, she praised her mother. She did not even mention her father.
exactly.
And when Speaker Johnson asked her at the State of the Union, did your parents get to see you become vice president? She said no. Her father is still alive.
Yeah.
And at the Breakfast Club, when Charlemagne the God asked her, did you smoke weed when you were in college, at Howard and so on, she responded by saying, oh, yeah, when Biggie and Tupac's music was out, I was smoking weed. And then Charlemagne said, when you were at Howard, Tupac and Biggie didn't have any music out. She was used to California press and talking with them. She forgot the level of press scrutiny once she's going for president.
Also, she forgot where she was, and the fact
Yes.
that she was expecting to be coddled. But Joe Biden called blacks super predators in 1990. Everybody forgets that. Joe Biden.
Yes.
Joe Biden. I got to say this properly. Some of his, shall we say, habits with his grandchildren border on creepy, for lack of a better way of putting it.
I've read some stories about, and even his he has a daughter.
He has a granddaughter or daughter or somebody that said, yeah. So these.
Well, you know that his current wife, Dr. Jill Biden, was the babysitter for him and his first wife.
Ooh, didn't know that.
Interesting.
And when his son Bo died, Hunter hooked up with Bo's widow.
Bo's widow.
Oh, yeah, that we know.
So then the question becomes, do the kids call him Uncle Daddy or Daddy Uncle?
So the Biden says that Trump wants to get rid of Social Security. Nowhere has Trump ever said anything remotely close to that. I think that's going to be fact-checked out because that's just a blatant lie. But
Right, and that's a scare tactic because Biden knows that elderly people vote.
Exactly.
And, of course, to attack Social Security is disaster for any politician.
And there's really a problem when Trump said that he didn't approve that policy because the Europeans are $100 billion spending less money than the Americans. That's why he didn't approve it. Biden did not have a response for that.
Well, again, when it came to numbers, Biden was in trouble tonight.
Okay.
When it came to accusing the former president of calling service men and women suckers and losers, I've been hearing that for the longest time. Is there any verification other than that soldier, that
No.
sergeant, that general?
No. There's no verification on it that I've heard of. Have you?
What about you, Bill?
Yeah, I guess you'd have to get that general who was the one in particular. I think it was Kelly, John Kelly, I think his name was, from Massachusetts, I believe. But you have to get him and get some truth serum and see what he says after you give him the shot.
Right. So,
But
also...
the other thing about Kamala Harris is this. Kamala Harris is the kind of black person in California whose family, Denver, California, their families would send them east to the HBCUs to kind of try to blacken them up.
Yeah.
To give them black history and culture and so on, because they were growing up and living in a very white environment.
Yeah. Good
Well,
point.
So that's who she is, and she's very attractive and all that.
I've got to be mindful of that because I've been accused of that myself. So
You've been accused of what?
having to take black classes. So so I have to be I have to give her a pass on that one.
Right. And of course, she's a very attractive woman. And the first time that Barack Obama, as president, saw her, he almost lost it.
Yeah. And did you see the look on his wife's face? It was so much fun. It was like, you're sleeping on the couch tonight, bro. So I hope you enjoyed that one. So the one thing that Biden should have responded to, he didn't. When Trump said that he offered the National Guard to Nancy Pelosi on January 6th, and this is a matter of record because he offered it before January 6th. And Nancy turned it down, and Nancy Pelosi said that January 6th happened. It was her fault because she was the one responsible for keeping the area safe, and she did not do it. But yet,
in her own daughter's documentary, apparently, right?
Exactly. But everybody is still blaming Trump for an insurrection, and if you look up the word insurrection, what happened on January 6th does not qualify to the Webster definition of insurrection.
What do you have? What do you have as the Webster's definition?
Well,
of
let's
insurrection?
bring it up. Don't ask me. We have Google nowadays.
Go ahead, Eric. Bring it. But
Another thing, after January
Insurrection.
6th,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
A violent uprising against an authority or government. The insurrection was savagely put down. You could also see rebellion. The quote, the thing it says, a violent uprising against authority or government. And my question is, where was the violent uprising against authority? The voting
going into.
But the voting, they never breached the chamber where the voting was happening.
Because they shot a woman and
Who shot a woman?
the Capitol Guard shot the woman as they were trying to actually get in there.
Well,
And they were in the hallways where the elected officials that they wanted were in hiding. So I think that definition, Eric, meets what an insurrection really is.
I do not, because there was no weapons. There was no.
What do you mean there was no weapons?
There was no there was no firearms. None of the protesters were armed. The person that they shot.
None of them were armed with fire.
The person that they shot was unarmed. They killed an unarmed person.
Who was trying to breach into
That
the
we
halls.
don't know that, because there's never been an investigation with a timeline as to this is what happened.
Based on what I read and what I saw.
What I'm saying is, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying we don't have a timeline, and we should have had a timeline because an unarmed person was killed.
I'm sure
by the Capitol
I
Police.
haven't seen the timeline. You haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either.
I'm sure there was an investigation. Bill, Pastor
Yes.
Walker and I agree to disagree. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as for the insurrection, you know that after January 6th, several states on the East Coast sent National Guard troops to Washington to secure the inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And it happens to be that one of my younger cousins led the Massachusetts contingent.
Interesting.
We were very proud of that.
Very
and
good.
of course, when you describe what happened that day as just a group of tourists going around the building.
I didn't describe that.
No, he didn't say you.
No,
I
not
never
you,
said
not you.
Okay, thank you.
No, Trump people say
Okay,
that, right?
but I just
Trump
wanted
people.
to be clear because
No,
Yeah.
the former president.
the former So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi turns down the National Guard. Joe Biden brings up that you're a felon. So Biden starts the personal attacks. Everybody was expecting Trump to do that. And if he had done that, I think he would have lost.
Right, he would have been blamed for.
Right, for coming after Joe Biden.
But once Joe Biden made the comment, everything was was fair game.
It was almost like Trump was saying, "Yes,
Right,
thank
right.
you.
You started it.
You started it.
I'm
Now
gonna finish
I'm
it."
going to finish it."
Right. And in 2016, when Trump ran against the 17 or so other Republican candidates for president,
Oh my
he
goodness!
quickly recognized that those governors and senators couldn't speak in the manner that he spoke.
Right.
He started playing the dozens with them, with Little Mario and Sleepy Jeb and all that.
Yeah.
But because they were governors and senators, they were used to going to a podium, making a statement, and then taking a few questions.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't used to playing the dozens with another person. Trump didn't care because he wasn't looking to win. Then he realized he could win, and he attacked the media as well. And the media are not popular in this country.
Well,
So it was a fluke all around.
there was a lot of things that came that I think aligned to have it happen the first time. My question is, should it happen again?
Should what?
No, it should not happen again. It should not happen
Donald
again.
Trump become president again?
No.
No.
Interesting.
But again, I would say, with reference to both of them, that neither of them should become the president.
So okay.
The other thing is, if I said to somebody, American voter, a male, would you allow your wife, your daughter, your mother to be alone in a room with Donald Trump?
Well,
And if the answer is no, why would you ever think of him being the president of the United States.
And I've got to say it this way.
Uh-oh.
I would say the same thing, but I would lower the age of the woman. And would you allow your daughter, your granddaughter, to be alone in a room with Joe Biden? And the answer would have to be no.
So both of them are disqualified.
Because both of them. So who do we have? If both of them are gone, who do the Republicans put up?
That's what this debate has said to all of us. We are in trouble as to there's no candidates. There's no.
We may have to draft somebody.
But who?
Yeah.
Well, again, there are 50 governors and 100 senators.
Yeah, but the only person that has, I think, a legitimate shot at being president right now is Marco Rubio. And I don't think he wants it.
No, he's got all that Cuban stuff that he's on the wrong side of. But how about getting Eric Holder back in the mix? Because Reverend Wall, if Eric Holder became the nominee for president, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
who would be his guy in Boston?
Well, my question is, first of all, and you have to forgive me, I don't know that much about Eric Holder. I've heard his name several times. I don't know, is he a Republican or Democrat?
Democrat Attorney General for Barack Obama.
Okay. That's an interesting one, because I don't think Barack Obama was able to do the things that he wanted to do in his first term. I think he chose. I don't think he chose to do them. And in his second term,
he knew what he couldn't do.
He knew what he couldn't do. So
he knew the reality
right.
by the second term.
And I tell people all the time, I voted for Barack Obama the first term. I wanted him to do a third of what he was promising, and he didn't do none of it.
Yeah. But you promised you.
Yeah, he didn't do any of it.
You're the president. You're gonna.
Well, I have an interesting footnote for you gentlemen. When Osama bin Laden was number one on the FBI most wanted list, Whitey Bulger was number two, James Whitey Bulger, right? I was working for my third UMass president, William Bulger, the former state Senate president.
You know who he is.
And my Columbia classmate, Eric Holder, was the Attorney General, and the FBI are under the purview of the Attorney General's office.
Didn't Howie Carr call him the corrupt midget? Was that the one?
That's the nickname that Howie gave him. Yes.
That's the state senator. Yeah.
So I'm working for Whitey's brother at UMass, my third president.
I work
and
for Whitey's
my
brother at the
classmate
courthouse.
Is the Attorney General.
Okay. I'm not sure where you're going with this.
Well, I'm just making the point that I've ended up being in the mix of these individuals over time in my career, so I have a certain kind of viewpoint about this business.
Would you put any of those people in the highest office of the land?
Of course not.
Okay.
I'd have Dan Walker or Bruce Wall in the top position.
Well, we can guarantee you this: you'll have great government.
and I get Secretary of State, right?
Yeah. You get Secretary of State. But here's the problem: what president had Spiro Agnew as the vice president? And
Richard Nixon. And what was the order given to the Secret Service if anything happened to Nixon? Get Spiro too.
So I'm just saying.
John Kerry said that in New Hampshire about Old Man Bush and Dan Quayle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, guys.
And Dan.
Yes, sir.
I also spent my sophomore year of college at Hebrew University in Jerusalem.
Nice.
And I got to see David Ben-Gurion in the Negev Desert. And I got to have tea and pastries with the former ambassador to the United States, Abraham Harman, who at the time was the president of Hebrew University. And my basketball team at Hebrew U won the Israeli National College Basketball trophy that year.
Amen.
Tremendous experience. Hey, guys, it's now close to, it's 11:28.
Do you know where your children are?
No.
Do you know where?
Do I know where I am?
Do you know where your husbands are? Yes.
So, Bill, thanks for calling in tonight. Bill has been calling in, and we've been having these conversations early in the morning. Pastor Dan Walker, when he's driving into the studio on Wednesday mornings, if I'm on live, he'll pick up the phone and call me. He was running a little bit late this Wednesday. He picked up the phone. He called me. And he was coming out of the tunnel, he said, and he was on the phone all the way to the station until he arrived here. And even when he arrived here, he was still on the phone when he sat down and sat behind the microphone. but we've had some great talks when he's in his car on his way in. Any final word, Pastor Walker?
First of all, I want to say thank you for allowing me to come in and to just sit with you two fine gentlemen. For a person myself, I learn a lot when I'm challenged by people who have more to offer than I think I do.
Let's put it this way: you were challenged when you were challenged by people who love you and are not trying to set you up.
And Pastor Wall, tell Pastor Walker about the day that you and Reverend Michael Haynes and I and Carl McCall were at the United Nations as Carl was being sworn in as a Deputy United Nations Ambassador appointed by President Jimmy Carter.
You know, I had no idea of how grand an event that was, and I was accompanying my pastor, Reverend Michael Haynes, down because he and the gentleman had a great relationship, and he was a mentor to Carl McCall. But I was totally in over my league. You know that, don't you, Bill?
I was watching out for you because it was just four guys from Roxbury hanging out in the Big Apple, man.
I believe I was very young at that time.
Well, there were times when
relatively.
There are times when I believe that I have been in situations where I look around the table and go, "Oh my goodness, I'm the only one that doesn't have a gun." I'm serious. Absolutely serious.
Well, 2/3 of the legislators in Albany had licenses in carry.
Yes, I know, but they also made it difficult, if not impossible, for the average business owner to have a license to carry, if I'm not mistaken.
True.
Okay, so it's always best for me, but not for thee.
All right.
Exactly.
I'm going to say goodnight because I've got to try to find my way home. At least Bill is at his domicile. He doesn't have to get in the car.
Well, doesn't your GPS know how to take you home?
No, because the cars are 2013 and they never updated the software, so it would probably take me over highways and roads that no longer exist.
Okay, well, you got a cell phone. See, when I get in my truck, I'm going to hit home on the button.
And we don't know where you're going
to end up. And we have no idea where I'm going to end up. But I'm going to put, honey, I'm coming home. I'm pushing home on the button. I've coming home. I've done my time.
Well, I'll be listening to the CNN and MSNBC broadcasters.
We know what they're going to do. They're going to absolutely destroy Donald Trump.
Well,
as far as they're concerned, he got up there and went the entire time.
No, he didn't.
I know he didn't.
He did a better job than many of us thought he was going to do.
Oh, I think he did.
My headline tomorrow would be elder abuse.
Yeah. My headline tomorrow would be Trump does not step on his, I'll just say, feet.
And my headline tomorrow wouldn't be a headline because I'm too tired to write it. Good night, guys.
Good night. God bless.
God bless you.
God bless.